I wanted to welcome everybody here. If there are problems with the sound, please let me know. My name is Connie Hutzsteiner. I'm a psychiatrist. I'm wanting to welcome you all. I'm very happy so many people are interested in coming to hear our conference here today. I wanted to start by just thanking people who have been central to its organization, the main person being Dr. Simonian, who is a driving force and really made this conference happen in all ways and shapes and forms. And I wanted to thank our speakers also who've come, one who's come from Oslo, Norway, and the other who's come from the countryside near Milan, Italy. And I very much appreciate they're both taking the time and the trouble to take a long flight to participate. Is the sound all right for everybody? Okay, good. I wanted to just start by saying I had hoped that on some way this conference would be a sort of a celebration. Wilhelm Reich is known to maybe most of you in some way that he was an incredibly prolific thinker, writer, inventor, and unfortunately tragically died in a terrible situation in the United States prison after his books were burned multiple times. And yet, despite much public disparagement of his work or his character or many lies that have been spread about his work, it has persisted. And I was hoping today we would be able to talk about some of the ways we're actually moving his work forward, or his work seems to be surviving all the various and sundry developments in multiple fields of science with a great degree of strength. In other words, this man was writing his ideas in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and yet they're all holding up under scrutiny. And as our own concepts in science advance since his death in 1957, I can't think of one idea that he had that is not still legitimate, which I think is extraordinary. I don't know many thinkers who are able to cut so sharply with a knife conceptually that they get so many things right, even with very, very few tools at his disposal to work with. And so as a consequence, I really hope that this conference would be more of a celebration of what he has done and where we see this potentially moving forward in the future. In many ways, I feel Reich's work and life represent the ultimate revolution. And certainly he wrote a very famous book, although he effectively never receives credit for that phrase, called The Sexual Revolution, even though that defined cultures in Europe and in the United States in an extraordinary way since the late 1940s and 50s and 60s. I think that's maybe because he addressed the core issue that all humans grapple with, and that is how to find true love, how to be capable of true, deep satisfaction and find love that we all find fulfilling. Now, you might obviously ask the question, well, how do we go from talking about love to talking about atmospheric physics? It does not appear as if there would be a logical, direct connection between the two, and yet there is. And that's what's so remarkable and revolutionary about his thinking. His thinking was able to really introduce revolutions not just in the field of human relationships, but also in psychotherapy approaches, in many, many aspects of healthcare. He has introduced things that could be potentially, truly, completely altering of our healthcare landscape. He really developed a concept of energy that would allow us to use an unlimited source of energy without destroying our environment through its utilization, which in and of itself at this time, when we're having so many problems with our energy utilization. It's obviously of absolute importance. There's also the issue that he had ideas for how to actually influence weather events so as to lead to a healing of our atmosphere and a resetting of our atmosphere to a status that would be still conducive to living here on the planet longer. Ultimately, in some ways, Reich did, toward the end of his life, speak more even just about issues of consciousness. Scientists are often put in pigeonholes or pockets. The same with psychologists or psychiatrists, and same with philosophers. One of the things I think he was quite extraordinary at was spanning so many fields of inquiry successfully. It's very hard to pigeonhole him in some ways. But as I said at the beginning, his life ended pretty tragically, very tragically, by I think anybody's standards. And I think that has left an impact on his legacy. I know in the years following his passing, many physicians who worked with him were quite intimidated or frightened about the possibility themselves of coming under professional scrutiny or harassment. And I think the question has often remained for many people, why would he be so aggressively attacked? And who would be behind it? What are the factors at play on our planet that would lead to this? I think that has held people back. But as I said today, I was hoping we could try to focus instead more on what he did create and what we could do with it. Will we be able to bring it back into the foreground successfully enough to use it going into the future? I feel it's our responsibility to try to do that, to try to either teach more about it, influence people in some way, try to show people what he really did. But I realize also, if there's going to be a change happening in human consciousness or in our understandings of science and the relationship between our emotions and our physical world and our happiness in general, that's a revolution that's going to have to happen on its own time. And unfortunately, none of us are going to be able to force it. But certainly it's worth an effort. So we have kind of a mixed program today, and we are trying to address some issues of research that's going on right now. I wanted to show a little bit of a film, also Man's Right to Know. It was created by the Wilhelm Reich Museum, and it gives a more general biographical history of Reich, maybe in more detail than I'm giving right now. But I wanted to also introduce a little bit of our speakers just so people know who they are. Dr. Simonian is a psychiatrist here in Los Angeles, and he grew up in Iran, and he has translated the function of the orgasm from Persian into English. Is that correct? Or other way around. I'm sorry, from English into Persian, right? Right, didn't write it in Persian. So he wrote it, he translated it into Persian. And in that way really came to know some of the fundamentals of Reich's theories very, very well. And he practices orgone therapy here in Los Angeles and also has lectured at different conferences about Reich and psychiatry. We have Roberto Maglioni is a colleague from Italy. Roberto is quite an interesting person and very sweet person, but interesting background. He actually is a mining engineer, but he got very interested in Reich's work in the 1990s and has since written 10 books on Reich. Most of them are in Italian, but there are 4 books in English that he has here, all of which I think are very, very interesting books, and they're for sale out in the lobby. He has worked extensively in the field of weather research, but also has studied issues of physical tests and issues that Reich discussed toward the end of his life. The interplay of orgone energy with nuclear material, the Orner experiment, as we call it, and also some of Reich's experiments on biogenesis, or the evolution of life. So his books are also available out there in the lobby to look at. And we also have Håvard and Håvard, I guess I pronounced it probably incorrectly, but Howard Nilsen from Oslo. He's an associate professor at the Norwegian University in Oslo area. He has a PhD in political science history, and also has been a visiting fellow at the University of Cambridge for several years. And he's going to be speaking on the political history of Reich in the period in the interwar years. My name is Connie Hutsteiner. I'm a psychiatrist. I can say when I first got interested in Reich, I was actually working as a singer and in film. And I remember I had enrolled in a theater class and was in that theater seminar. The leader used some orgone therapy techniques that were very, very intense. And they elicited a lot of emotion in me, and I was interested in what he had done. And I had known Reich's name as a child growing up, because my father's a psychiatrist. So I basically started doing research into his life, and that was back in 1980. And ended up then enrolling in medical school and became a psychiatrist. So it's been a long road getting here, but it's an issue that's never let me go. In other words, the study or the knowledge that Reich brought forth, I thought was that important that I would continue on this path. Maybe, because I'm not sure everybody's background in Reich, I have often hoped that we could put together a project in which we can talk about Reich's major theoretical developments. And they're hard to all go into right now, but he really was the father of body-integrated psychotherapy, which is now manifest in many, many forms, many different schools of body-oriented psychotherapy. It's a psychotherapy form that works much more intensively, often than normal speaking, talk therapy, as they say. And through that work, he really came to understand what energy in the body is, and was able to see the connection between the energy in the body and the energy in the atmosphere at large. So these are just a few of some of his basic trends in thinking. Maybe I could start the Man's Right to Know film, and you can hopefully see that. I'm doing this because our planet is in trouble, is in very serious trouble. And we all know this. We've been hearing about it for a while. Sorry. Oh, wrong. I'm sorry. That's the wrong film. Sorry about that. Where's Man's Right to Know? Sorry.
That was the wrong one?
Yeah, it is the wrong one.
It's in this folder here. I think it's in that folder right there.
Okay. I know this Stefan had it. Stefan, do you know where it is? I'm sorry. I didn't know which.
Yeah.
It is in the drive.
Can you click?
Okay. That.
Where is it?
It's in the.
The Man's Right to Know film?
Yeah.